Marce, ¿me pasas mis lentes, por favor? Hello, everyone. I don't know if this thing's working now. I hope you can see it because it says none of you is online yet. But I hope this thing works. Just let me see. If it's not working correctly, then it's okay. I'm going to try to change it. Just wait. Try. Okay, yeah, probably it's not working. So let's wait. Let's be patient. Gracias, mi amor. Ahorita me lo como, ¿eh? I'm having a little trouble with this. I don't know why. It might be because it was like a private. It was in the settings. I just changed from private to public. So let's see if it works now. Just hold on. Don't get desperate. Okay. I know those things are hard at the beginning, but well, yeah. So now we are online. That makes me happy. Hello, everyone. Yes, now there's 12 of you working. There's Raquel. It says Imelda Jimenez. Antonio, it's you again. You are not supposed to be here. Sorry, he's not part of the group, but he's here. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this first session. I would like some of you please to share your emails on the chat so I can add you into the um, streaming, and we can have like more interaction. We can talk and you can ask me your questions. I'm sorry I'm wearing a cap. I didn't comb my hair. It's very hot. So I decided to wear this so you don't see my hair like all crazy. And yes, so today we are going to work with something really interesting. I think we will find it really interesting because it has to do with how we teach in our classrooms, the ideas we have, the beliefs behind teaching, and we will define some concepts that are really interesting for all the teachers um, to understand what a method, what a technique, what an approach is. I think you will find it really interesting and helpful uh, because most teachers always wonder why you do certain activities and why you are like what you are told to do certain kind of activities within a school. There are different kinds of schools that follow different approaches, and some of them say we want you to be more communicative, we want our students to learn how to speak. That is like the most famous trend nowadays, that they say you will learn how to speak in 3 months, in 2 months. And this is like the approach, this is the general idea schools have about teaching. So today we're going to start like identifying what a method is, what an approach is, what a technique is, and also how those things work together in reference or regard in regards of a specific belief in terms of language acquisition or language learning. I'm going to take 2 or 3 more minutes so I organize like all the stuff I have here, and we will start in a couple of minutes. Okay. So meanwhile, I would like you guys to start getting ready with your notebook, with everything you need to work today. Okay. So this was just like an introduction, a brief introduction, and also I wanted to welcome you to this session, and I'm very happy to be working with you through this. Through this way. I was quite desperate because I didn't want you guys to I wanted you to be ready for your exams. I know this is an important project for you, and I know you are putting so much effort on this that I wanted to continue working with you. And thank God we have technology and we can work through this way, right? So welcome everyone. Please don't forget to write your names down on the chat so I know who I am interacting with. And again, your emails. Write your emails down, and I will invite you to be part of this. The first one is translation method, isn't it? Well, yes. We're going to work with the grammar translation method this first session, and yes, it will definitely help you. So I'll see you in 2 more minutes. Okay, don't get desperate. Thank you for your patience. Well, I'm ready, I think. Well, this is quite complicated, guys, because I've been trying like to get used to work with this streaming. It's called StreamYard, and it's quite easy. But sometimes I get like all confused because I have a lot of windows open at once, and I don't know where I put something, and then I have to be like changing and jumping from one window to another. So please be patient to me, and yes, don't get desperate. And well, so we are going to start working today with this topic that is like I gave you an introduction already, and it's quite easy. We're going to work with principles of methods and approaches. First of all, we have to understand what the method is and what an approach is, so we can understand like all these discussion about the different methods and approaches for language teaching. First of all, I have a series of questions here that I would like you guys to answer first, like on a piece of paper, and if you want to share some of your answers through, if any. What is a technique? Next question: is there something like the best method for teaching English? And the last question: what are the elements of method? So I would like just you to make a quick reflection about those questions, and just write down some of your answers, right? I don't want you to go like very deep into each of the questions. I just want like some ideas from you, so we can have this first part of brainstorming, right? To see what you know about this topic, and to see if you read and if you did your homework from the previous weeks. Just like the first question, go with the first question. What do we mean by method? I read your answers, please. Well, someone, Catalina wrote that a method, uh, it's a way to do something. Yes, that's a good answer. That's a very good answer. It's a way of doing something. Good. Aurea says that a technique, it's like a synonym or it's similar to skillful. Yes, techniques have to do more with skills. They have to do more with those things we actually do, like in a practical way, more than beliefs, more than theory. When talking about techniques, we refer to those things we do. Imelda says that method it's or it could be defined as steps to do something, and Raquel says the same thing. And yes, you are definitely true. You are definitely correct. That's what a method is. And then we have another question. Um, what is an approach? Because we already define method in a way. It's like a way of doing something. But what about an approach? What do you understand when you listen to this term, an approach? Um, Coco says natural way to learn an approach. Okay, okay. Well, it's different from your idea. Coco, nevertheless, is not incorrect. I mean, it's just your idea, but an approach. Just try to define the word like in literal way. What does approach mean, and how could you take it into language teaching or acquisition? Yes, an approach says it's like a method, but less scientists. Okay, okay. To get close to, yes, Aurea, that's the definition. To get close to something, to approach something, refers to do something under a specific perspective in terms of teaching. Rocio says a way of teaching and learning. True, that's also true. When you approach someone, you get near to them. Yes, Terry, that's true. So that's an approach is the way we get close to teaching or the way we perform teaching under certain circumstances, ideas, and beliefs. Um, Sandra, don't worry. You can try later. Probably it's your internet access, and don't worry about that. You can try to watch the video later if it's not possible now. Um, Imelda says that it's not proven. Okay, it could be. And what are then the differences between a method and an approach, if there are any? Well, first of all, a method, as we said, could be considered as the steps to perform something, to achieve something, and an approach goes like in the backstage. It is like the beliefs, the theory, like all the elements of the of the of the belief system about something. So the differences are mainly that an approach is way more general than in a method. And yeah, you will find more differences later on in this presentation today. And what is a technique? Yes, I think someone mentioned it already that a technique was like performing actually like a skill, like doing something. And that's true. A technique has to do more with doing and performing an action. And is there something like the best method for teaching English? What do you think about that question? Do you think we can find like the best method for teaching English? It depends on the group. Yeah, that's definitely true, Kata. It all depends on the groups we have and like the characteristics of those groups. For example, ages, like the part of the world where we are teaching. If you have like this multi-language classroom, like we were talking previous classes about the United States, for example, in which in where they have groups with Japanese people, Chinese people, French people, and then we will have to approach teaching in a different way than what we do here in Mexico with Mexican students, right? Because all of them share the same language and then things are different, and that's definitely true. I have more questions. Let's read them. Mm, it says there is the best method for each one, like for each person, Raquel. That's what you mean? Depend on the topic, the teacher, it depends. Completely true. We may use several methods according to the students. That's also true. It depends on what the objectives are. True, that's also true. The profile, the needs, excellent. So you have an idea of how we use approaches and methods in our classrooms depending on many different things. It also depends on the topic, on what our students need to learn and want to learn, and it depends on the kind of class we have. If it's like an introductory class, if it's like to test our students, if it's for us to do some remedial work. So it all depends on many things, right? And also it depends on the beliefs the schools have about teaching, learning, and evaluation, and all those things. But okay, so we have to continue. And we will go to the next slide. So first of all, we have to understand what a method is. And for that, here I have some definitions that I got on this book. I told you is really, really nice and helpful for you guys. If you want to photocopy it, I can lend it to you. It's called Teaching by Principles, an interactive approach to language pedagogy. It's the fourth edition, and it's very useful. If you want to use it, please just tell me, and like I can lend it to you. You can buy it or whatever. We can see what we do. All right. So I got lost. It's here. Yes. So Edward Anthony, back there in 1963, described method as the second of three hierarchical. I'm sorry with that word. I couldn't find it and I didn't look for it. I'm a very bad teacher. And well, this is like a method is described as the second of three elements, and they share this relationship of being one the most general and the more specific one. If you see here, we have three terms that were the ones that we were discussing at the beginning of the session. That is first approach, that is understood as a set of assumptions dealing with the nature of language learning and teaching. So when we talk about approaches, we talk about assumptions, ideas, beliefs, theory that try to explain the nature of language. First, what is language? Is language communication? Is language a code that we have to understand like in a mathematical way? Is language something considered to be an art? That's the approach. Those are like the eyes with which we see a reality, right? And also, the approach has something to do with learning. What is the idea about learning? Do students learn naturally? Do students learn through guidance, through the expertise of the teacher? Like, that is like what concept we have about language, learning, and teaching too. Am I teaching because I am an expert? Am I teaching because I have experienced the use of language in another country? So all those are assumptions about a reality. That is the approach. So we can take it or we can summarize it as the the way in which we perceive and we understand the three of them: language, learning, and teaching. Then a method was described as an overall plan for systematic presentation of language course based on a selected approach. So the method is more like a plan, as you can see in the definition. It's more for systematic presentation of a language course. So now in a method, we include more organized structures in which or that will be followed for us to achieve something in terms of language use. The method is not it's or doesn't have anything to do with ideas, with concepts. A method goes more like for a plan, like an organized plan, and is systematic, as we can see here also. And then the technique, it's understood as that specific part in which we reproduce activities, in which we perform what what we understand from approach and method. So technique is just like the final stage in which we actually do what we think, what we believe, what we organized in terms of language learning. So we take it into reality. We do it. We perform it. So this is just some definitions from this author. We also have Larsen, Freeman, and Anderson, who consider that a method is a coherent set of principles linked to certain techniques and procedures. So, as you can see, the method involves and it includes principles, techniques, and procedures. This is what we understand by a method. Give me a second. Okay, I'm sorry. I got distracted. Well, if there are any questions, please feel free to write down on the chat, and then I will be answering those questions. And I hope everything is like clear, and I hope you understand everything. And if there are questions, please again feel free to ask me. Okay. So those are like some definitions. Oh no, just some definitions about method, uh, approach, and technique. But yeah, basically for these sessions we will need to understand methodology, approach, method, curriculum, and technique. Those five terms in order for us to be able to work with the next things, right? First of all, methodology. It's a pedagogical practice in general, right? Including theoretical underpinnings, and related research. So this goes more for theory. Whatever considerations are involved in how to teach are methodological, right? Then an approach is a theoretical position and beliefs about teaching, language learning, learners, institutional and societal factors, purpose of a course, and the applicability of all to a specific education context. So, in simple words, it's the theoretical position and beliefs about teaching in general, teaching and learning in terms of language. Then a method is a set of classroom specifications for accomplishing linguistic objectives. Methods tend to identify teacher and student roles, linguistic and subject matter objectives, sequencing, and materials. Yes. So again, a method it's more like systematic, like an organization of the lessons of the classes, and the curriculum it's like the specifications for carrying out the particular language program. That's it. And then a technique, and it is commonly referred by other terms, right? It's referred to by other terms that people always use, like different from technique. And it could be strategy, it could be activity also. So there are different terms. And techniques are a variety of exercises, activities, procedures, or tasks that are used in the language classroom for realizing lesson objectives. And obviously, some techniques are specifically used under a specific method or an approach, right? Okay, so any questions about this? Yes, Terry. Terry says technique would be the same as strategy. Yes, they could be considered as synonyms. Do you are you going to send this information, Imelda? Yes, I'm sending the information, so don't worry about that. Uh, I'm feeling a little bit nervous because I don't see your faces. And every time we're in the classroom and I see your face, I know that you are understanding or not. Sometimes I see your what face and I know I didn't explain it well. So now I don't know if you are really understanding what I am saying, but I hope you are. If not, just write it down and then I will try to solve the situation. And I also feel nervous because, uh, speaking English in front of a computer, like on YouTube, is not easy for me. But yeah, we learn from all those things, right? I mean, I've been online prep teacher for the last 5 years, more or less. But it's different because those are high school students and they don't even realize about my mistakes. But you do, and that's why you make me feel nervous. Okay, thank you, Terry. Uh, Thank you, everyone, for cheering me up. But yeah, so let's continue. So now, a method we can be understood as this series of systematic topics, right? And in which all are also considered things like the strategies, the techniques, the approach, and everything is involved within the method. And there have been a lot of different methods so far the history in terms of language teaching, and we can divide them into three different categories. The first one, the early years; the second one, the designer, the method era; and the dawning of a new era. So you will see why those three groups. The first group involves classical and grammar translation methods, the series method, the direct method, the audiolingual method too. So those are four different methods teachers have used to teach languages, specifically English, right? Today we're going to work with the grammar translation method. That's like the first one in our list. But first, I would like you guys to watch this video I got for you. I got it from the internet. It was on YouTube, and I found it really useful. So I'm going to play it. Please take notes. Please pay attention, especially to what the teacher does, what the students do, and like all those aspects that you have on your document I sent you last week. So try to make some notes, and when this thing finishes, we will continue with the class. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to play it. Just give me a while.
Buenos días, niñas. Hoy vamos a ver un texto que os saqué de este libro, muy interesante. Entonces lo vamos a ver, ¿vale? Lo que quiero es que lean el texto primero, lo van a leer, y después de eso, del primer párrafo, van a dividirlo en oraciones. Y quiero que 5 oraciones del primer párrafo me las traduzcan con ayuda de su diccionario, por favor. Tienen 3 minutos para hacer esa actividad. En tu cuaderno, por favor, Melissa.
Teacher, ¿qué significa scan?
Es el diccionario ahí, Luisa, por favor, búscalo.
Bueno.
Okay, did you finish? Yes. Yes. ¿Terminaron?
No, aún no.
Okay. Melissa, I'm going to read you the first sentence, and then you're going to translate for me. Yeah? Te voy a leer la oración en español y tú me la vas a traducir, ¿sale? Okay. Drew Barrymore was born in Los Angeles, California in 1965.
Drew Barrymore fue nacido en Los Ángeles, California, en 1977.
Luisa, she comes from a long line of actors. In fact, her grandfather, John Barrymore, was one of the most famous actors.
Esta es una oración muy larga, teacher. Bueno,
Inténtalo.
ella vino de una larga línea de actores. Su papá, John Barrymore, fue su papá, John Barrymore, fue uno de los más famosos actores en los Estados Unidos. Hasta ahí.
De las oraciones que tenemos, vamos a sacar 3 verbos. We're gonna need 3 verbs. Melissa, tú busca 1, tú el 2 y tú otra vez el 3. Melissa, the number 1, which one is? Appear.
Start.
Hard. ¿Así? The number 3. Melissa? 1. Muy bien. De estos 3 verbos que tenemos aquí, quiero que busquen un antónimo, un verbo que sea diferente, lo contrario a estos que están aquí. Okay, the first one, appear. Not here, not here. El segundo, start, finish. Finish. El tercero, in one. In one. Ahora, Luisa, ¿qué significa appear?
Aparecer.
Aparecer. Entonces, ¿qué significará un appear?
No aparecer.
No aparecer.
Podría ser.
Start, ¿qué significa, Melissa?
Comenzar.
Comenzar. So, finish.
Terminar.
Wanted. Luisa,
Querer.
querer. Y wanted,
No querer.
no querer. Muy bien. Necesito que anoten esto en su cuaderno, por favor. Y de tarea van a llevarse del texto, sacar la otra mitad de las oraciones que quedaron. Me van a traducir el texto y van a sacar otros 3 verbos. Igual que hicimos ahí, también con lo que una palabra que sea lo opuesto y su significado.
Eso es mucho. Además, esto está bien aburrido. Tiene todo el cuaderno con puras traducciones. Eso no llena mucho.
Eso es todo.
Okay, so what are your comments after watching this video? I would like some of you guys, please, again, write your email down on the chat so I can invite you to have a brief conversation with me and we can interact more directly. So please, just like 2 or 3 of you, type your email down and then I will add you into the conversation. But yeah, well, the video, as you could see, there was a teacher working under the grammar translation method. That is the first method we are discussing and learning about teaching English. And this method has like some specific characteristics that you could easily identify because like this is familiar to most of us. And yeah, because who hasn't learned English or like a language through these kind of activities? I remember when I was in junior high school, my teacher would tell me like, just open your book to page number 3 and translate the text that you have there. Take your dictionary. If you have questions, ask one of your friends or of your classmates, and that was it. This approach, sorry, this method is quite like it works depending on the age, I would say. Because if you are young, you don't care. You just finish the text. Sometimes there are like very long texts that teachers don't even like. They don't pay attention to them. They don't check them like they should, and that's why they don't work sometimes. Socorro says that the teacher speaks a lot of Spanish. Yes, that's true. And that's because L1 takes an important part here. It plays an important role because that's a way of making students feel more comfortable, first of all, and then you can compare the second language or the language they're learning with something they already have on their brains. You remember we talked about those structures our students had already in their brains. So what the grammar translation method tried was just to find an equivalence between two languages. Like you're learning English, but you know this in Spanish. So it is similar to this, but with different words. The structure is quite the same. So that's why they use a lot of L1 in these lessons. It says instructions are given in students' native language. Pronunciation isn't taught. Practice on a series of drills. Yes, you are completely right. Students receive instruction in their mother tongue because it's easier for the teacher and also for the students. They don't care about pronunciation at all. And drills. A lot of drills are used. Yes, that's true. Because this approach is more based on vocabulary, right? They worry more about vocabulary, synonyms, antonyms, and all those things. Translation, use of a dictionary, completely true. The goal was only translation, yes. Method was not interesting for students. Rocio, yes. Students were bored. If you saw at the beginning, some of the students were trying to sleep on their desk because they were bored. They knew what was going next, right? There were no expectations about the class because the students knew they were going to read and translate, find just words in the dictionary. It was boring, yes. Um, I disagree with this kind of technique of approach. Remember, it's no, sorry, method. So yes, Rosalba, me neither. But sometimes it works. You will have a final reflection when we finish checking all the different approaches and methods. Again, methods. Yes, and you will agree or disagree with some of them, and you will realize how much you use of each of them. It wasn't meaningful, Terry says. It wasn't meaningful at all. It was not related to students' needs or likes. It was just like translation. It seems like the teacher is not necessary. Yes, teachers were not necessary or not so necessary at that time. Nevertheless, there was also some grammar, like grammar emphasis. So teachers were necessary on the grammar explanation. Well, I have more material for you guys to understand this better, the grammar translation method, and here we go. I'm going to share it with you. Just hold on. I think it's this one. Yes, it is. Well, the grammar translation method has like some important characteristics, and I wanted to tell you something, and I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. Yes, this method was useful when it was first established, when it was first proposed. Why? First of all, because things were different than what we have now in terms of technology, in terms of needs. If you go back in the time and you remember the history of language, of English language, there we mentioned something important, and it is key to understand this. First, language was meant, or it was used to communicate specifically for trading, for like basic things, right? So people wouldn't talk, wouldn't have those phone calls, they wouldn't have like video calls, they just would write letters, right? Or they will have the need to read something or write something. So that's why the grammar translation method fulfill the needs people had but at that time. We would say like it doesn't work anymore because our students learn different, they have different needs, of course. So we don't have to be very strict, or like we don't have to criticize this method like so bad as some teachers do, because it was useful and it fulfilled the needs and the requirements people had before. Nowadays we could use it and we can use it sometimes in our classes, sorry, depending on the objective we have. Well, first of all, the theoretical foundations of this method, we could say that there were classical assumptions about education as a discipline. People would say that education, if you go back to the conductism, I think that's the word in English, people would say that we train people, we don't teach people. We're helping them repeat words, we are helping them repeat procedures. So teachers were the experts, sorry. Before, education was not seen as something interactive, it wasn't seen as something that had to do with creativity, with different kinds of learnings, or teaching styles, or teaching no or learning styles, right? So it was just an assumption about the education that was very classical, right? And they didn't see it as we see it now. That's why it's like very, very classical perspective of education. And learning a second language was seen as the mark of educated people. You remember we also mentioned that in the history of language at the beginning of the module. So the teachers just wanted to teach their students to use English, to see they have more power, to see they were more educated. So that was like the theory behind this method. This method has different goals. Some of them were vocabulary memorization, grammar rules, like understanding grammar rules, the translation of passages, and reading proficiency. And again, this was just because, but by that time, people didn't need to communicate as we do now. So their needs were different, and this fulfilled those needs. The teacher has this controlling role, as you could see. The teacher was telling students what to do, how many words to find, and for homework this and for homework that, and about these, the teacher would establish the topic, like the background topic. You know, nowadays in our classes, we try to use students' interests into what we do. I mean, I don't talk about my likes and dislikes. Well, sometimes, but most of the times I try to get this information from my students. Like if I'm going to talk about comparatives and I will compare two or three different actors or singers, what I do is to use what they like. I don't talk about my favorite singers because my students don't even know them. So I try to talk about their favorite singers, you see? So but that time the teacher controlled everything. If the teacher wanted to talk about Frank Sinatra because he loved it, so the class would be about that specific character. And the teacher controlled everything, groups, like when, how, what, to evaluate, etc., etc., etc. The teacher was the leader, and students were seen as passive and receptive roles, or characters, because the students were not going to they wouldn't propose any topic, they wouldn't like be part of the decisions, important decisions about evaluation, about anything. They were just there receiving, taking notes, translating. They would use a lot their notebooks. That was their activities, or those were their activities. Some typical activities within this method were explaining rules, memorizing vocabulary, and translating reading passages. It was like most common activities. This method also had some strengths, right? It's not all bad. First, it helps students, or it improves students' reading and writing skills. That, as we mentioned already, it was useful and it was good for them then, right? Now our students need to read and need to write, but in a different way. Nevertheless, you could use this approach to reinforce these skills. It also had weaknesses. For example, there was no oral practice or fluency. Students never learned how to speak fluently, and because it was just necessary for them to grade, and if they could grade, that was like mission accomplished. They didn't need anything else. And also, there was no use of higher order thinking skills. Why do we mean by that? Like discussing, analyzing, comparing. They were just stuck on these low order thinking skills, like memorizing, identifying. It was just about that. I don't know what happened. Okay, so I would go back to you on the chat to see if there are questions about this first method. Mm, grammar translation. What was the name of this method? Sandra, the name was grammar translation method. No interaction. Yes, that's true. Okay, so guys, tell me more questions, more comments about these. Uh, I am about to say I survived to the first online lesson. I'm doing my best. I'm trying to do the best as possible. Trust me, this is not easy, but yes, I've been studying, and I mean, I learned this back there in the university, and then I have a course in the United States about teaching, and this is like information that I am using now, so it's easy. Like, I know this topic, but it's not easy to interact with my computer in front of me. And no one wanted to share your emails with me. Thanks for that. I feel rejected. So tell me questions. I think it's simple. I think it's easy. There's no need like to go deeper into this topic. Well, not here, not now. If you want, you can read the material I sent to you also last week, I think. Well, the evaluation within this method was like very close to wrong, correct and wrong. There was no feedback like we know it now. There was just like correct, incorrect. You got an A, you get a C, you get a 10, 5. So it was just about, let's say, number one, the answer was go or goes. Go. No, it was goes. Okay, correct, incorrect. That was evaluation. And evaluation was also quite unfair because, when translating, there could be different versions of the same text. And sometimes teachers were quite strict because, again, there was no room for creativity. So teachers just wanted to see what they had on their brains. Like if I write down, I will always love you, someone could say te amaré por siempre or yo siempre te voy a amar. The two translated texts are correct. Nevertheless, the teacher could have said, like, no, I will always love you means yo siempre te amaré, right? And that was just the correct answer. So it was unfair because students couldn't be creative. And some of the most common tools to evaluate within this method were like written exams, just like changing some words into their Spanish version from their English version into their Spanish version, also translating texts. And there was no more like input, for example, with listenings, they were not so used. Yeah, evaluation was just written. That's true. Rocio, I'm sorry about the thing that happened in your house. Um, mhm. Sandra says that it was the old teaching English method. Yes, it was. It could be considered the first one, like how everything started when talking about language pedagogy. Students were independent. I would say they were dependent always on, like they were depending always on the teacher, because the teacher would control everything, like the instructions, the times, the materials, the topics, everything. So they were always expecting the teacher to say something so they could do. Um, yeah, Terry, that's true. So that's why it was quite unfair, because everyone could understand something different. We learned that in pragmatics. You remember that there is like a huge variety of meanings for words and for expressions, depending on how you analyze it and from the perspective you see things. So that's why it was unfair. Some more questions. Tell me more about this approach. Again, method. Correct me every time I tell you a wrong term. So the next or the yeah the next methods we're going to check were born in order to complete the last one. Like the last one was not that successful because we identified there were those problems, and then we proposed something new. That's why we have a lot of methods. And it was not just about solving the previous one, it was also about fulfilling needs and requirements of the new generations and the new trends and the new way of seeing communication. Or Aurea, that's very good to mention it now. She says that it is not always bad, that it could be useful sometimes. I mean, yes, we know it's obsolete, but we also know that it can be useful, specifically when we talk about the stages of our students. If my student is very young, that was a topic that we had to learn last class with Piaget, that mentioned about the stages in development, like cognitive development. If my student is very young, like to understand something more complex, then I would just go for words. Like you translate words. That's what we do with kids. When they're very young, we just teach them words. Like ball means pelota, or sometimes we don't use L1 now, but yeah, it could be useful for them. When your students begin, when they're beginners, and you teach them those expressions like, may I go to the bathroom? Can I go out? You don't explain to them that can is a modal verb. Just tell him this is the phrase you need. But what does that mean, teacher? Well, it means puedo salir afuera. Salir afuera. Puedo salir un momento. Puedo salir al baño. So you teach them just the translation, the equivalence, and that's the grammar translation method. I mean, we cannot say we don't use it because we would be lying. We use it a lot, and it's good. Exactly. Yes, you just need to be practical sometimes. So more comments, more questions, more complaints, concerns. And this method has also been recycled. Like for example, if you see these apps like Duolingo and all those apps we use to learn English on our phones, they are based on grammar translation methods. We cannot say it's different because we have a word, we learn the word, we memorize the word, then we use it in a text, then we try to translate the text. It's like the new generation of grammar translation methods on apps, for example, and mostly we use it in our exams because we need to have like an evidence that we are evaluating our students, And unfortunately, due to the conditions we live in our educational system, we still use this kind of exams, like translate the sentence, complete the sentence, write another word. We try to change it and to use more like competencies things, but it's not always possible, right? So, questions, comments, anything else we could say about this first method? If there's nothing else I could do for you, then I would say it is all for today and I survived. I will try tomorrow to be better, like to do it better, and that's how things work, right? I'm happy to be in touch with you, and I hope this has worked and you have learned a lot. um, and just continue studying those things, right? Don't just take notes and forget about that. That's why I send you this worksheet in which you will like organize this information and yeah, use them and change them if you want. It was just an idea which I didn't finish. I realized before starting this session, I realized my ideas were not complete. And yeah, it was because I just wanted to get some ideas first and then I was going to change everything, but I didn't. So do whatever you want with this material. It's just a guide for you to understand each method. Mm, thanks, Coco. Rocio, see you tomorrow. And Kathy, thank you very much. Thank you, Raquel, Rosalba, Terry, thanks. Yeah, tomorrow I think I could work earlier, like at 7. If it's okay with you, at 7 would be a great time. The thing is that today I had a lot of classes with my other students, and it was difficult to start earlier. But yeah, at 7 is okay if you agree. Gris, thank you. Aurea, thank you. That makes me happy. And well, take care of yourselves. And yeah, so we'll be in touch. And anything you need, don't hesitate and send me a message. All right. So then I'll see you at 7 tomorrow. And I will need your emails. So send them to me through the WhatsApp group, please, because tomorrow I will make you pay that today you didn't want to talk. Okay. So goodbye. Thank you very much. Have an excellent day. Bye bye.